Welcome to Mortgage Markets and More. I am your host, Peter D'Angelo. I hope you're doing well and you had a wonderful week. Today we've got our December home sales report, and we're going to just dive right into it. There was quite a bit to wrap up the year, so let's get into some of the information. I'm going to throw up the graphic on the right, and essentially in December 2023, sales slipped pretty much across the board in the Midwest and in the South. We saw a little bit of a rise in the West, but we were unchanged in the Northeast. So all four regions experienced year-over-year sales decreases as we wrapped up 2023. As a reminder, we're looking at the seasonally adjusted amounts here. So that takes into account kind of like an annual rate instead of it just being the cold hard numbers that actually were produced to give us some reference to the rest of the year so we can have consistent understanding of what we're looking at. The inventory is at 3.2 months versus 2.9 in December of 2022. So some slight improvement there, which is good. And that kind of is showing this track record, which is a trend developing, right? Month of inventory is again, calculated based upon the number of sales transactions that are occurring compared to the amount of homes listed for sale. So that's how we generate that figure. Lower activity, lower months of inventory. We see things have been slow for most of 2023, and 6 months is still the healthy benchmark for inventory. So we're still very much below that at this time. Existing single-family home sales, 3.78 million seasonally adjusted. That takes into account the fluctuations of things like holidays and whatnot. It's down 1% month over month comparatively to November of 2023 and down 6.2% year over year compared to December of 2022. The actual number, preliminary estimate from National Association of Realtors, is 267,000 homes that were sold in December across the country, single family. And that's down 1.1% month over month and down 9.2% year over year. I'm showing you these numbers so you can see that seasonally adjusted, it's 6.2%, but there's a disparity when we look at the actual numbers and the actual home sales compared to the actual home sales from a year ago. There was significant softening and much lower volume and lower activity, which was the case across the board pretty much for 2023. The median sales price was $387,000, and that's down 1.3% month over month, but that's up 4% year over year for single family homes. Now we're going to look what the graphic is showing, a $382,600 median sales price for the country across all single family condos, co-ops, everything included. And that's down 1% month over month, but up 4% year over year, which established a record high median sales price in U.S. history. Home values are continuing to rise. Even with the tougher rate environment that we saw in 2023, prices are still going up. There's still a lot of competition. There's still a lot of pent-up buyer demand. So contextualizing this information, we know that there's still a lot of people who are either desperately looking for their first home or very interested in upsizing, downsizing, and the inventory is just not quite there. 3.2 months of inventory. It's an extremely low amount of inventory, even though we are making progress when we look at 2022 December to 2023 December. Remember, the rates started changing in 2022. So that market, we're now getting to compare apples with apples a little bit better than, let's say, if we were looking at December 2022 compared to December 2021. December existing home sales dropped by 1% year over year, down 6.2%. Median sales rose. 2023 annual sales was at the lowest in 30 years. So right now, the preliminary estimate is 4.09 million homes sold, which is, interesting comparatively to the record median price of $389,800. The unsold inventory at 1 million, which is down 11.5%, and that's where we're getting the 3.2 months of supply from. National Association of Realtors is predicting some market recovery for 2024. We're wrapping up the last year. We're getting a good understanding of what the lay of the land was, and we're going in the right direction. I'm going to show you another graph, and for those who are listening, I'll explain what's on this graph for you. The first thing we're going to look at right now is the existing home sales median price percent change year over year. So just looking back a year, and that's what this is showing. In December of 2022, 2.1% was the increase in the median sales price. In January, 1.9% increase. February, that's when the rate environment started getting really tight, pretty much flat, no increase. Then we saw decreases from March through June of 2023, and anywhere between 1% all the way down to 3% was the biggest decline that we saw in the median sales price in May of 2023. And then it started to rebound just 0.9% less year over year in June. And then starting in July, things started to pick up again in 2023. At that time, we saw interest rates making some improvement. We saw some relief happen. And then we had August. That's when things started getting a little shaky again. We hit September, October, rates started going up. That's when we saw the record highs of 8%, 8.25% for the averages, and for some people it was even higher than that. And we saw a little bit of a softening in September and October, but still something approximating anywhere between 2 to 4% year over year median price increases. There's a lot of buyer demand. That's why you're listening to these numbers and thinking to yourself, how is it the home values are still going up? It's a supply and demand economic, very simply. There's not a lot of supply. There's a ton of demand. And so the home values are preserved and continuing to grow. It's part of the reason why I submit my opinion that as we go through the rest of this year, at worst, we'll see just maybe a little bit of a dip in home value, but I don't even see that as a likely case. I quite frankly see home values to continue to rise, and then when interest rates soften, whenever that will be, we will see a market that will have another uptick in home value. The next thing we're going to look at is the percent change in sales from a year ago by price range. This is important, and this is going to be really helpful for those of you who may be prospective home buyers to get a sense of where your price range is and what that historically has been looking like compared to a year ago after looking at all of 2023. The first band for those who are listening is the price point of $0 to $100,000. Not a lot of inventory there. So as you see, these are going to be pretty insane differences between the bands of different price points. But there's a statistical thing to consider in the fact that we have history of very low transactions in the lower price points. So up to 100,000, there's not a lot of sales going. So any little bit can have big effects when we consider all of the data. So the percent change, 18% decline in sales in that first 0 to 100,000 purchase range. The next purchase range of 100,000 to 250,000 saw 16.6% decline year over year. And this is number of sales, the amount of activity. 250 to 500, we're moving up now. It's softened by 7.1%. 500 to 750. This is a common band based upon the median sales price. If our median right now is in the mid 300,000 and ticking up actually 382. So anything that's in that, 250 to 500, this is inclusive of the median sales price. And that saw a decline of 2.9%. Very likely because of the inventory, and a lot of home sellers aren't listing their homes because they don't have somewhere to go, and that is the case for quite a lot of people. Not everybody, but majority of people sell their home to move into something else, and if they don't have something else to jump into, they're not going to list their property, keeping the inventory low, and that's why we saw a decline in sales in this band. What is doing very well is 750 to $1 million, so an increase of 5.7%. Home prices are going up. More properties are falling into that price band, and that is going to yield us this type of data and statistic, 5.7% increase in sales. And then over $1 million saw a 14% increase in sales year over year. That's wild. And it makes sense. Home values are going up. homes are more expensive. And so more are going to be falling into that. And we're seeing more homes in inventory in that. And those are the homes that fly. Those are your very well-qualified buyers. And usually they carry with them a large down payment. And that's a competitive market just as well as your more average, closer to the median sales price. Mortgage rates, I'll just briefly comment on this because they do influence how the real estate market is going to be operating and how it does operate. They average 6.6%. And the single-family homes and condos saw price increases despite the sales declines. So single-family and condos outperformed the overall average of all home sales, existing, new construction, condo co-op, everything. The regional differences here are starting to play out. We see that the Northeast is pretty steady, staying flat as we ended off the year. Midwest and South sales dropped. If you just take a peek on Zillow, go into a Florida market, go into a market somewhere in California, we are seeing that there was more inventory and activity happening while the Northeast saw lower activity. So now they're starting to decline on the sales. Price reductions started becoming more common because of the high rate environment we saw September to October of 2023. And these are things to consider as you kind of take a full scope look and lay of the land. All regions, though, not talking about units sold, like the actual volume of selling. We're talking about the value now. All of them had price increases. To summarize all of this, if you are interested in purchasing, it still remains, you're probably tired of hearing me saying it. I feel like a broken record too, but the best thing to do is to get yourself prepared. I'm working with clients very regularly, every day in, day out, and we're having conversations and we're trying to strategize what makes the most sense for them, what's going to help them from a budgetary standpoint, from a cost effectiveness standpoint, and then from the standpoint of winning in this market. That's the important part. You can qualify. We can have the numbers lined up, but you need a little bit extra. So in this market, it's really important to have your trusted advising team. That's a mortgage professional like myself. That's a trustworthy realtor who knows that market that you're interested in, inside and out. These are your two biggest stakeholders that are going to help guide you to the best probability of success in this market. And the only way to do that, I'm telling you, 100%, this is the case. You need to be motivated and committed to it. Casual looking can work. I've seen it work for some of my clients, but it's definitely not the lion's share. The majority of the clients that have been winning in the market over the past 12 months and that are currently winning in this winter market are those clients that got pre-approved. We have regular conversations. We stay in touch. We stay in the loop as mortgage rates change and as budget may need to get adjusted. But typically, when you're committed to making the purchase, you're committed to shopping for your home, that is where you're going to see the highest likelihood of success. So make sure you get those key stakeholders in place and you will have success. I guarantee it. Hang in there. Rates will have an update next week. This has been a wild one this week, but the Fed is meeting on Wednesday, January 31st. Ahead of that meeting, we'll have a conversation on Monday about interest rates, a review of this past week, as well as looking forward to where the Fed could be going. Friday's real estate update next week, we will have a small amount of time where we're going to talk about mortgage rates, and mainly because as we talked through all of these figures, all of the sales data for 2023, the mortgage rate is a very important component. It dictates the affordability of the homes that you're purchasing. That's it for our show today. I hope you found this helpful and useful. Again, I encourage you to share the show, like, subscribe, comment. Would love to hear your feedback. If there's something you're personally interested in, please reach out. My contact information is in the episode description. If you happen to know anybody who is in the real estate space, if they're a real estate professional, whether that's a realtor, an attorney, insurance agent, please share the show. There's some very good information here that can help everybody as they're having their conversations with clients, and that's what my goal is here. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead, and I'm looking forward to talking to you on Monday with a mortgage rate update. Take good care.